Chapter 6. Beezus' Birthday. When Beezus came home from school on the afternoon of her 10th birthday, she felt that so far the day had been perfect. Packages by her plate at breakfast, a new dress to wear to school, the whole class singing "Happy Birthday" just for her. But the best part was still to come. Aunt Beatrice was coming for dinner. Beezus could hardly wait to tell her aunt about acting the part of Sacagawea, leading Lewis and Clark across the plain to Oregon at the PTA meeting. And of course Aunt Beatrice would bring more presents, very special presents, because she was Aunt Beatrice's namesake. And at dinner there would be a beautiful birthday cake with 10 candles. Mother had probably worked all afternoon baking and decorating the cake, and now had it hidden away in a cupboard. When Mother kissed Beezus, she had said, "I'm sorry, Beezus, but I'll have to ask you to keep Ramona out of the kitchen for a while." "Why?" asked Beezus, thinking her mother was planning a surprise. "So I can bake your birthday cake," Mother explained. "Isn't it baked yet?" exclaimed Beezus. "Oh, Mother." "This has been one of those days when I couldn't seem to get anything done," said Mother. "It was my morning for the nursery school carpool. After I picked up all the children and drove them to nursery school, and came home and did the breakfast dishes and made the beds, it was time to pick up the children and take them all home again. And after lunch I started the cake and had just creamed the sugar and butter in the electric mixer when I was called to the telephone. And when I came back, what do you think happened?" "What?" asked Beezus. Pretty sure Ramona had something to do with it. "Ramona had dropped all the eggs in the house into the batter and had started the mixer," said Mother. "Shells and all?" asked Beezus, horrified. "Shells and all," repeated Mother wearily. "And so I had to get out the car again and drive to the market to buy more eggs." "Ramona, what did you have to go and do a thing like that for?" Beezus demanded of her little sister, who was playing with her doll Bendix. "To see what would happen," answered Ramona. "She doesn't look a bit sorry," thought Beezus crossly, "spoiling my birthday cake like that." "Don't worry, dear. There's still plenty of time to bake another," said Mother. "If you'll just keep Ramona out of the kitchen, I can get it into the oven in no time." That made Beezus feel better. At least she would have a birthday cake, even if it did mean looking after Ramona for a while. "Read to me," Ramona demanded. "Read about Big Steve." "I'll read to you, but I won't read that book," said Beezus, going to the bookcase. She really wanted to read one of her birthday books called 202 Things to Do on a Rainy Afternoon. But she knew Ramona would insist on a story. "How about Hansel and Gretel?" she asked. Next to stories with lots of noise, Ramona liked stories about witches, goblins, or ogres. "Yes, I like Hansel and Gretel," agreed Ramona, as she climbed on the davenport and set Bendix beside her. "Okay, I'm ready. Now you can begin." Beezus curled up at the other end of the davenport with Grimm's fairy tales. "Once upon a time," she began, and Ramona listened contentedly. When she did not have to make noises like machinery, Beezus enjoyed reading to Ramona. And this afternoon, reading aloud was particularly pleasant, with Mother in the kitchen baking a birthday cake. As Beezus read, she listened to the whir of the mixer and the sound of the eggs being cracked against a bowl. Beezus read about Hansel's leaving a trail of crumbs behind him as he and Gretel went into the woods. She read the part Ramona liked best about the witches trying to fancel Hansel. Ramona listened wide-eyed until Beezus came to the end of the story, where Gretel pushed the witch into the oven and escaped through the woods with her brother. "That's a good story," said Ramona, as she turned a page. Then she stopped and sniffed. The air was as she jumped down from the davenport. Surprised that Ramona didn't demand another story, Beezus picked up 202 Things to Do on a Rainy Afternoon and began to read. She was learning how to make a necklace out of beans and pumpkin seeds painted with fingernail polish, when a lovely sweet vanilla fragrance began to fill the house, and Beezus knew her birthday cake was safely in the oven at last. Ramona's unusual silence made Beezus glance up from her book. "Ramona!" she cried, when she saw what her little sister was doing. "Stop that right away!" Ramona was busy pulling graham cracker crumbs out of the pocket of her overalls and sprinkling them across the rug. "I'm Hansel, leaving a trail of crumbs through the woods," she said, digging more crumbs out of her pocket. My father is a poor woodcutter. Oh, Ramona, said Beezus. But she had to giggle at the picture of father as a poor woodcutter. Ramona sprinkled more crumbs on the rug, and Beezus knew she had to do something about it. Why don't you pretend you're Gretel, she suggested, because Gretel would not leave crumbs on the rug. Okay, agreed Ramona. Well, that was easy, thought Beezus, and went on reading about making a complete set of doll furniture out of old milk cartons. How good her birthday cake smelled! She hoped Mother would remember she had asked for pink frosting. She heard the oven door open and close. Mother must be peeking into the oven to see how my cake is coming along, she thought. Beezus read on, absorbed into the directions for making a vase out of an old tomato juice can. Something smells funny, she thought as she turned a page. Then she stopped and sniffed. The air was no longer filled with the lovely warm fragrance of a baking cake. It was filled with a horrid rubbery smell. That's funny, thought Beezus. I wonder what it can be. She sniffed again. Maybe somebody was burning trash outside and the smell was coming in through the window. Mother came into the living room from the bedroom. Beezus, do you smell something rubbery? She asked anxiously. Yes, it smells awful, said Beezus. Ramona held her nose. Mother sniffed again. It smells as if something is scorching, too. Beezus went into the kitchen where found the smell was so strong it made her cough. It's worse in here, Mother, she called as she looked to see if there was anything burning on the stove. Then Beezus remembered the oven. Mother, she said in a worried voice, you don't suppose something has happened to my birthday cake again? Oh, of course not, said Mother, coming into the kitchen and opening the window. What could happen to it? Just to be sure, Mother cautiously opened the oven door. Mother! She cried, horrified at what she saw. Look! Ramona's rubber doll Bendix leaned over the edge of the cake pan, her head and arms buried into the batter. Her dress was scorched to a golden tan. Oh, Mother! Repeated Beezus. Her birthday cake, her beautiful, fragrant birthday cake, was ruined. Is the witch done yet? Ramona asked. Ramona, began Mother, and stopped. She couldn't think of anything else to say. Silently, she turned off the oven and, with a potholder, pulled out the remains of the doll and the remains of a cake. Ramona Geraldine Quimby, said Beezus angrily. You're just awful. That's what you are. Just plain awful, spoiling your own sister's birthday cake. You told me to pretend I was Gretel, protested Ramona, and Gretel pushed the witch into the oven. Beezus looked at the cake and burst into tears. Ramona promptly began to cry too. This made Beezus even angrier. You stop crying, she ordered Ramona furiously. It was my birthday cake, and I'm the one that's supposed to be crying. Girls, said Mother in a tired voice. Ramona, you have been very naughty. You know better than to put anything into the oven. Now go to your room and stay there until I tell you can come out. Sniffling, Ramona started toward the bedroom. And don't you dare put your toys on my bed, said Beezus. Mother, can you fix the cake? I'm afraid not. Mother poked the cake with her finger. It's fallen, and anyway, it would probably taste like burnt rubber. Beezus tried to brush the tears out of her eyes. Ramona always spoils everything. Now I won't have any birthday cake, and Aunt Beatrice is coming, and it won't be like a birthday at all. I know Ramona is a problem, but we'll just have to be patient because she's little, said Mother, as she scraped the cake into the garbage can. And you will still have a cake. I'll phone your Aunt Beatrice and have her bring one from the bakery. Oh, Mother, will you? Asked Beezus. That's what I'll do, said Mother. Now run along and wash your face, and you'll feel better. But as Beezus held her face cloth under the faucet, she was not at all sure she would feel better. For Ramona was to spoil one birthday cake was bad enough, but two? Probably nobody else in the world had a little sister who had spoiled two birthday cakes on the same day. Beezus scrubbed away the tear stains, feeling more and more sorry for herself for having such a little sister. If Ramona were only bigger, things might be different. But since she was so much younger, she would always be, well, a pest. Then the terrible thought came to Beezus again. The thought that she had the time Ramona bit into all the apples and the time she shoved the dog into the bathroom. She tried not to think the thought, but she couldn't help it. There were times when she did not love Ramona. This was one of them. Everybody knew sisters were supposed to love each other. Look how much Mother and Aunt Beatrice loved each other. Beezus felt gloomy indeed as she dried her face. She was a terrible girl who did not love her little sister. Like a wicked sister in a fairy tale. And on her birthday, too. A day that was supposed to be happy. When Beezus went into the living room, Mother switched off the vacuum cleaner, which had been sucking up the crumbs Ramona had sprinkled on the rug. Aunt Beatrice said she'd be delighted to bring a cake. She knows a bakery that makes very special birthday cakes, she said, smiling at Beezus. You mustn't let Ramona spoil your birthday. Beezus did feel a little better. She curled up on the Davenport again, with 202 things to do on a rainy afternoon, and read about making Christmas tree ornaments out of cellophane straws until she heard her aunt's car turn into the driveway. Then she flung her book aside and ran out to greet her. "Happy birthday, darling!" cried Aunt Beatrice as she set the brake and opened the door of her yellow convertible. Joyfully, Beezus ran to the car and kissed her aunt. "Did you bring the cake?" she asked. "I certainly did," answered Aunt Beatrice. "The best birthday cake I could find. That isn't all I brought. Here, help me carry these packages while I carry the cake. We mustn't let anything happen to this cake." And the way Aunt Beatrice laughed made Beezus laugh too. Her aunt gave her 3 packages, 2 large and 1 small, to carry. "The little package is for Ramona," explained Aunt Beatrice, "so she won't feel left out." Mother came out of the house and hugged her sister. "Hello, Bee," she said. "I'm so glad you could come. What would I ever do without you?" "It's good to see you, Dorothy," answered Aunt Beatrice. "And what's an aunt for if they can't come to the rescue with a birthday cake once in a while?" As Beezus watched her mother and her aunt arm in arm go into the house, she thought how different they were. Mother so tall and comfortable looking, and Aunt Beatrice so small and gay, and yet how happy they looked together. Smiling, Beezus carried the gifts into the house. Aunt Beatrice always brought such beautiful packages, wrapped in fancy bow and paper and tied with big fluffy bows. Aunt Beatrice handed the cake box to Mother. "Be sure you put it in a safe place," she said, and laughed again. "May I open the packages now?" Beezus asked eagerly, although she felt it was almost too bad to untie such beautiful bows. "Of course you may," answered Aunt Beatrice. "Where's Ramona?" A subdued Ramona came out of the bedroom to receive her present. She tore off the wrapping, but Beezus painstakingly untied the ribbon on one of her presents, and removed the paper carefully, so she wouldn't tear it. Her new book, 202 Things to Do on a Rainy Afternoon, suggested pasting pretty paper on a gallon ice cream carton to make a wastebasket. "Oh, Aunt Beatrice!" exclaimed Beezus as she opened her first package. It was a real, grown-up sewing box. It had 2 sizes of scissors, a fat red pincushion that looked like a tomato, an emery bag that looked like a ripe strawberry, and a tape measure that pulled out of a shiny box. When Beezus pushed the button on the box, the tape measure snapped back inside. The box also had needles and pins and then a thimble. Beezus never wore a thimble, but she thought it would be nice to have one in case she ever wanted to use one. "Oh, Aunt Beatrice," she said, "it's the most wonderful sewing box in the whole world. I'll make you 2 pot holders for Christmas." Then, as Aunt Beatrice laughed, Beezus clapped her hand over her mouth. The pot holder was supposed to be a surprise. Ramona had unwrapped a little steam shovel made out of red and yellow plastic, which she was now pushing happily around the rug. Breathlessly, Beezus lifted the lid off the second box. "Oh, Aunt Beatrice!" she exclaimed as she lifted out a dress that was a lovely shade of blue. "It's just the right shade of blue to match your eyes," explained Aunt Beatrice. "Is it really?" asked Beezus, delighted that her pretty young aunt liked her blue eyes. She was about to tell her about being Sacagawea for the PTA when Father came home from work, and before long dinner was on the table. Mother lit the candles and turned off the dining room light. "How pretty everything looks," thought Beezus. "I wish we had candles on the table every night." After Father had served the chicken and mashed potatoes and peas, and Mother had passed the hot rolls, Beezus decided the time had come to tell Aunt Beatrice about being Sacagawea. "Do you know what I did last week?" she began. "I want some jelly," said Ramona. "You mean, please pass the jelly," corrected Mother. "Please." "No, what did you do last week?" asked Beatrice. "Well, last week Beezus began again. "I like purple jelly better than red jelly," said Ramona. "Ramona, stop interrupting your sister." "Well, I do like purple jelly better than red jelly," insisted Ramona. "Never mind," said Mother. "Go on, Beezus."